Maybe it's best not to plan ahead. We could live in the moment like Jesus said. Take no care for the morrow. Be like the birds instead. It isn't easy with the ringing in my head, but if I keep my feet from slipping, I may not drown. I don't wanna drown. I don't wanna.
Hello, hello, and welcome to Everyone Wants to Be Me, Identity Theft Blows. This is season 1, which I have lovingly called Hookers, Cookers, Police, and Thieves. So, this particular episode is called Push Me, Pull You. And as I said in episode 2, I realize that is a Dr. Dolittle reference, slightly on purpose. So, really quickly, want to recap a couple of key points from episode 2. It's important that you all remember that one of the things that is really necessary to do is, one, you want to audit your security questions. You want to change them into things no friend or family member could guess. It's first and foremost. Again, also, it's worthwhile checking out Have I Been PWNED.com. That can help you figure out whether or not your data has been breached or your passwords leaked. Number one, audit those security questions and change them into things no friend or family member could ever guess. Number 2, pay attention to who in your life controls your access to other people. And number 3, start journaling. Buy that journal from a local bookstore and get started on documenting things that feel off, interactions that feel off. So, with that, let us dive into episode 3, Push Me, Pull You. This was a good time. So I'm just going to set the scene for you here. I'm standing on a street in Paris, the City of Light, one of my favorite places in the world, and quite possibly the most romantic city in the world. And I had, not long before that, witnessed an assault. My quote-unquote new best friend had been standing next to me in a club in New York, and a woman bumped into her, and I saw her reach around and grab a hunk of that woman's hair and jerk her head back, and then follow after her. I followed along after her with the purpose, with the intention of, de-escalating any physical interaction that might happen. which, P.S. while we're here, later got spun into, yeah, Grace was there to like rock and roll on her, which I wasn't. I've never been in a physical fight in my entire life. But shortly thereafter, I went to Paris, and I, during that trip, somewhere in the back of my mind, I was also thinking, I'm never going to get paid for this trip. I went with an individual who was the best friend of my new best friend. And, she, I'm putting this kindly, had an alcohol problem, um, was pretty messy, and very often would let me or have me be the person to secure the Airbnb, to pay for the Airbnb with the, profuse promises that she was going to pay me back when we got back from Paris. Uh, the two times, because apparently once wasn't enough, that this happened, that I went to Paris with this individual, it was like pulling teeth to get the money back. And the first time we went together, she left self tanner all over the sheets, the bed sheets in the Airbnb, which, by the way, I ended up having to pay the dry cleaning bill for. Good time was had by all. So while I'm in Paris with this individual, I'm thinking, I'm never going to get paid back for this trip. I just knew it, because that's what identity theft does. It turns every experience, even Paris, even one of my favorite cities in the world, into a financial anxiety attack. So welcome back to Everyone Wants to Be Me, Identity Theft Blows. I'm Grace Mangum, your guide through the absolute funhouse mirror of having your life stolen in slow motion. Did I mention that this took place over a 10-year period? So last time we talked about the friend who brought me everywhere and ditched me like a handbag she was tired of carrying. Today the story gets international. We're going to Paris. It sounds glamorous, right? I've been several times. It was in the way that the Titanic's dining room was glamorous. Beautiful on the surface, and then a massive iceberg underneath. This episode is called Push Me, Pull You, because that's the dynamic I was trapped in. Close, then distant, included, then excluded, valued, then discarded, over and over and over and over again. And the trip to Paris crystallized all of it. We're also going to talk about the first real data breach I experienced, trouble getting paid for legitimate work, and why the push-pull dynamic isn't just emotionally exhausting. It's a control mechanism that makes identity theft possible. Buckle up, kiddos, and, maybe grab a croissant. So the trip to Paris, let me paint the picture. I was there also to see a friend of mine who joined us from another European country where he lives. He's American. And also to see someone that I cared a great deal about. I had been to France many times for work. This wasn't for work specifically. I was excited to be there. It was, hello, Paris. Even jaded New Yorkers get excited about Paris. We, are just too cool to to admit it. But from the moment I arrived, things were off. The push-pull had already been in full effect back home. One week I was the greatest person alive. The next week I didn't exist. Phone calls returned enthusiastically, then not at all. Invitations extended warmly, then rescinded with vague excuses. It was like being in a relationship with a flippin' weather system. In Paris, this dynamic went into overdrive. There were moments of genuine connection with this mutual quote unquote friend, walking through neighborhoods, sharing meals, which, P.S., while we're here, I paid for, having conversations that made me think, okay, maybe I was imagining things. Maybe everything is fine. And then, like a flippin' switch, the temperature would drop, cold shoulder, exclusion, that particular brand of being ignored that's designed to make you feel like you're the problem. And then I kept remembering the assault that I had witnessed, and I started to see signs of similar behavior on behalf of the individual with whom I was traveling. She would have a little too much to drink and get nasty, aggressive. She would sneak out in the middle of the night, going who knows where. There was a very strange package that was attempted to be delivered to the Airbnb where we were staying. She convinced me that this bar where she knew people were having a party for us. We, she drags me out like at 11 o'clock at night after already having had dinner and thinking we're going to have a chill evening, insisting that this party is being thrown in our honor. We get there and it's not. It's just another night at that bar with a theme. Um, and then she got so drunk that I had to try and put her into an Uber, which the Uber drove off because she made such a spectacle of herself. And then her bartender friend actually sent me a message later to say, well, you left without paying your tab. And I'm like, well, I'm babysitting your friend. So those are sort of just the highlights of some of the stuff that went down in Paris. But again, going back to the assault that I witnessed in the club in New York City before this trip, I, what I saw, because it's not my story to sensationalize, but I will tell you this. Witnessing violence when you're already in a state of emotional destabilization, excuse me, is, you know, a lot. Your nervous system is already running hot from months of push pull manipulation, and then you see something genuinely terrible, and your brain just short circuits. I needed support. I needed someone to say, that was awful. Are you okay? Let's talk about it. What I got was minimization. It wasn't that bad. You're overreacting. Can we not make this about you? Does all that sound familiar? Maybe not the assault part, but the commentary afterwards. The you're overreacting. Can we not make this about you business? If you've ever been in a relationship, friendship or otherwise, when your legitimate distress was treated as an inconvenience, you know this feeling. And it's not just cruel, it's tactical. Every time your distress is minimized, your confidence in your own perceptions erodes just a little bit more. And that erosion, well, that's the point. That's what makes you easier to manipulate later. Now, let's talk about the money, because the trip to Paris wasn't just emotionally disorienting. It was the first time I experienced real, tangible financial manipulation connected to these individuals. I was supposed to be repaid when we got back from Paris, when we were back to New York. And suddenly that repayment process had to be brokered through the individual who I had just witnessed assault someone in a bar. And I got weekly payments. By the way, this was in the middle of 2020, so it's, no one's working. I wasn't working, and I I, like everybody else, was, short on funds, honestly, unemployment and even the additional funds from the pandemic uh, that were paid were not sufficient because apparently, according to the state of New York, I owed them $3,000 for back unemployment pay, which was shocking. So, what I thought would be pseudo sufficient amount of money to sustain me until I found another either consulting project or a full time job, hopefully the latter, uh, was cut in more than half. So that was a good time. Meanwhile, my data was being breached. The first real breach beyond the Marriott incident was becoming a bit more apparent. Small things at first, a credit card charge I didn't recognize, a notification from a service I didn't sign up for, pretty much the digital equivalent of someone rearranging your furniture while you're asleep. Not traumatic enough to call the cops, but unsettling enough that you start sleeping with one eye open. Here's what I want you to take from the Paris chapter. Identity theft doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens inside a web of emotional manipulation, financial obfuscation, and strategic destabilization. The trip to Paris wasn't just a trip, it was a laboratory, a controlled environment where my reactions could be observed, my vulnerabilities cataloged, my perfume tampered with, and my confidence systematically undermined. And the whole time, I thought I was just having a bad week abroad. I thought the push pull was just how some people are. I thought the payment issues were just business stuff. I thought the weird data notifications were just the internet being the internet. None of it was just anything. All of it, all of it was connected. And I didn't see it because I was too busy trying to enjoy Paris. Here's a pro tip from someone who learned the hard way. If your trip is being paid for by someone else who, or you're paying for that trip for someone else, and that person is the same person who's been jerking you around emotionally, that's not okay. That's leverage. And leverage is the currency of manipulation. Alrighty, school's in session. Remember, when you quit learning, you're dead. So today's lesson, data breaches and why they're scarier than you think, but the good side is that they're more manageable than you fear. When I say data breach, most people picture a hoodie-wearing hacker in a dark room, typing furiously, pounding Diet Cokes. And sure, sometimes that's what it looks like, but more often, a data breach that leads to identity theft looks something like this. Someone you know has access to information they shouldn't. Maybe they looked over your shoulder while you typed a password. Maybe they have access to your mail, as someone who used to cat sit for me did. Maybe you share a family phone plan and they can see your account details. I didn't have a family phone plan. Someone else set that up for me without my permission, knowledge, or consent, which gave these individuals further access to all of my devices. My laptop, my phone, my iPad, everything. Oh, and my TV. The Marriott breach in 2017, the one that hit while my mom was dying, because life has an incredibly twisted sense of timing, that exposed personal data of hundreds of millions of guests. Names, addresses, passport numbers, payment information, and my data was in there. But here's the thing. A data breach by itself is like leaving your door unlocked. It's only a vulnerability. It's not a crime. The crime happens when someone walks through that door. And in my case, people who already knew me, friends and family, who already had context about my life, they were perfectly positioned to exploit that breach. Here's what to do. Number 1, monitor your credit, not occasionally, regularly. Set up alerts with all 3 credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. You can get free credit reports annually at annualcreditreport.com. Do it. Number 2, consider a credit freeze. A credit freeze pretty much prevents anyone from opening new accounts in your name. It's free, it's easy, and it's one of the single most effective tools against identity theft. You can temporarily lift it when you, emphasis on you, need to open an account. Number 3, separate your digital life from people you are unsure about. If you share a phone plan, a streaming account, or God forbid, an email account with someone who gives you a bad feeling, start separating. Now, not next month, now. I was the dummy who shared credentials to some of my streaming services, 1 or 2. And I had these individuals took that and ran with it. And part of the problem was that I reused passwords. Don't reuse passwords. I know it's a pain in the neck to try and remember passwords. Here's what I do. You've got that notebook. Write it down. Write down your passwords for every account that you have. Fold it up into a nice, neat packet and store it someplace safe. Okay, so number 4, document the small stuff. That weird change you didn't recognize, screenshot it. That notification from a service you didn't sign up for, write it down. When, not if, when you need to build a case, these small pieces of evidence become your foundation. My iCloud account got hacked. These people set up multiple iCloud email addresses tied to that account. That gave them access to everything that was on my phone and in my email. Everything. So, speaking of Paris, I gave you the recipe for a baguette. The next recipe I'm going to share is actually for beignets. And I know they're not Parisian necessarily, and actually there is a name for them in Paris. Sometimes they're cream-filled, and when they are, they're called boules de Berlin, which basically translates as Berlin balls. So it's essentially a beignet like you could get in Café du Monde or Café Beignet, which happens to be my favorite in New Orleans. And this version actually has a cream-filled center. You can do it either way. If your cream filling is not your thing, then make beignets. I'm going to share the recipe with you. So, and making those boules de Berlin or those filled beignets, whichever you want to call them, is kind of my way of taking back Paris. It's kind of my way of taking back New Orleans, which became another place that became tainted by these individuals for me. It's a way of taking back things, places, and people that I love. So here's the recap. That push-pull dynamic, hot, then cold, close, then distance, inclusion, then exclusion, it isn't just emotionally draining, it's a destabilization technique. Witnessing distressing events while already destabilized compounds the damage. Financial manipulation, trouble getting paid, trouble getting repaid for trips, vague runarounds about money, all of that erodes your economic independence. And data breaches, especially when combined with insider knowledge, create the perfect conditions for identity theft. So, your action items this week, or when you get to them, but I encourage you to do them sooner rather than later. Number 1, freeze your credit with all 3 credit bureaus, with Experian, with Equifax, and with TransUnion, and do that today. Number 2, if you share any accounts or plans with someone you don't fully trust, begin separating. Number 3, start documenting any financial weirdness. Every odd charge, every delayed payment, every vague excuse, write it all down. Write it all down. And write down those passwords legibly, clearly, on a piece of paper or pieces of paper, and store it somewhere safe that only you know where it is. So the next episode is, I have entitled, You Spin Me Right Round, Baby, Right Round. Yep, that is a Dead or Alive reference. I am a child of the 80s. Well, I was a teenager in the 80s, but you get what I mean. So we're going to talk in that episode about the first time that these individuals stopped talking to me entirely. Didn't talk to me for 3 months. A mysterious figure, well, I promised I wouldn't name check her. I'm just going to call her she. I also refer to her sometimes as the Husk. She was the one who brokered conversations. She brokered, the pod of individuals who could hang around safely with one another during 2020, during, COVID, where we were all being scared half out of our minds and, told to do things that were confusing and told conflicting information and all sorts of fun stuff. So she was the one who would set up, pod hangouts at her apartment. Thanksgiving, there was a Thanksgiving vaccination situation that was, frankly, a lot. And, because nothing says family like using a global health crisis as cover for identity theft. So share this with anyone who's ever come back from a trip feeling worse than when they left. Leave me a comment on the YouTube channel. Everyone Wants to Be Me, Identity Theft Blows. I'll share the recipes there. I will have links to those as well. And again, leave a review, like I said. Check the show notes for credit freeze links. I'll include those. I'll also include information on data breach resources. And I'll also include the filled beignet / boule de Berlin recipe for you to enjoy. I'm Grace Mangum. Everyone Wants to Be Me, and apparently they also wanted my frequent flyer miles. I'll see you next week.